Chapter 1. Stop reacting. Start observing the biological hijack. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a situation that makes your blood boil. Perhaps it is a colleague taking credit for your hard work. Perhaps it is a family member bringing up a past mistake for the 100th time. Or maybe it is just the person who cut you off in traffic today. What do you feel? You feel a tightening in your chest. Your heart rate begins to climb. Your palms might get a little sweaty, and your thoughts begin to race, formulating a sharp, stinging retort. This is not just a feeling. This is a biological hijack. Your amygdala, the ancient, primal part of your brain designed to protect you from saber-toothed tigers, has just taken the wheel. In this state, you are no longer a rational human being. You are a biological machine programmed to fight or flee. The problem is that in the modern world, there are no tigers. There are only emails, insults, and inconveniences. When you react to these things with the same intensity as a life or death struggle, you surrender your power. You become predictable. You become a puppet, and whoever or whatever provoked you is holding the strings. To stay emotionally neutral, you must first understand this. Your emotions are hijackers. Noticing them first is the only way to regain control. The art of the third-person perspective. Most people live their lives inside their emotions. When they are angry, they are the anger. When they are sad, they are the sadness. To become emotionally neutral, you must step outside of yourself. You must move from being the participant to being the observer. Imagine you are standing on a balcony, looking down at a crowded street. Below you, a man is shouting at a taxi driver. You can see the man's face turning red. You can see his frantic gestures. But you don't feel his anger. You simply observe it. You think to yourself, that man is very upset. This is how you must learn to view your own internal world. When that surge of frustration hits you, instead of saying, I am angry, you must say, I am observing a sensation of anger in my body. This linguistic shift is subtle, but it is revolutionary. By labeling the emotion, you create a gap. In that gap, the observational mind takes over. The observational mind does not scream. It does not hit send on a career-ending email. The observational mind simply collects data. It notes the rising heart rate, the heat in the face, and the urge to lash out. And by the time the data is collected, the primal urge to react has often already begun to fade. Observe first. React never. Real-world example, the CEO's crisis. Let's look at how this looks in the highest stakes imaginable. Consider the CEO of a global tech firm. It is 3 a.m. She is woken up by a frantic call from her head of security. A massive data breach has occurred. The personal records of 4 million customers are currently being sold on the dark web. By 8 a.m., the stock price will likely crater. By noon, the media will be calling for her resignation. In this moment, her biology is screaming at her to panic. Her stomach is in knots. She feels the cold chill of fear. If she reacts to that fear, she will call her team and scream. She will make frantic, uncoordinated demands. She will project weakness, and the company will fail. But the elite CEO has trained for this. She doesn't react to the fear, she observes it. She says to herself, my body is experiencing a high-stress response. This is expected. She takes a breath. She looks at the situation not as a catastrophe, but as a series of variables to be managed. She observes the facts. The breach is contained. The legal team is on standby. The press release needs to be drafted. Because she stayed neutral, she was able to think clearly. Because she was the observer, she remained the leader. She survived the crisis not because she didn't feel the pressure, but because she refused to let the pressure dictate her movements. Observe first. React never. The 90-second rule. There is a scientific reality to your emotions that you must memorize. The physiological lifespan of an emotion is approximately 90 seconds. When you have an emotional reaction to something in your environment, a chemical is flushed through your body which puts it on full alert. For those chemicals to totally flush out of your system, it takes less than 2 minutes. If you are still angry after 90 seconds, it is because you have chosen to keep that emotion alive by thinking thoughts that re-trigger the stress response. You are feeding the fire. If you can simply observe the sensation for 90 seconds without feeding it a story, without telling yourself how unfair the situation is or how stupid the other person is, the emotion will die a natural death. This is the secret of the world's most composed individuals. They aren't superhuman. They just know how to wait out the 90-second chemical dump. They observe the wave as it crashes, and they wait for the water to recede before they speak. Practice. The observational journal. To build this muscle, you must practice when the stakes are low. You cannot wait for a life-altering crisis to try out emotional neutrality. Starting today, I want you to keep an observational journal. Every time you feel a minor spike in emotion, someone takes your parking spot, your coffee is cold, or your computer is running slow, write it down. But do not write about the event. Write about the observation. Observation. 10:15 a.m. Heart rate increased due to a late delivery. Noted a clenching in the jaw. Reaction, none. Observation. 2:30 p.m. Felt a flash of annoyance at a colleague's comment. Noted a desire to interrupt. Reaction, stayed silent for 90 seconds. The more you track these moments, the more you train your brain to see emotions as external data points rather than internal commands. You are rewiring your neural pathways to prioritize the prefrontal cortex over the amygdala. You are becoming the master of your own house. The power of not now. One of the most effective ways to stop reacting is to master the phrase not now. When your emotions are high, your brain will tell you that you must act immediately. It will tell you that if you don't defend yourself right now, you will lose. This is a lie told by your ego. Emotional neutrality is the ability to look at a provocation and say, I see you, but I will deal with you later. You are not ignoring the problem. You are simply choosing to address it when your chemistry is stable. By delaying your response, you ensure that your response is a calculated move, not a desperate flail. Reaction is impulsive. Observation is intentional. Reaction is a weakness. Observation is a weapon. Repetitive reinforcement. As we conclude this first chapter, let these words sink into your subconscious. Let them become the background noise of your mind whenever the world tries to shake you. When the news is bad, observe first. React never. When the insult is thrown, observe first. React never. When the plan fails, observe first. React never. When the pressure mounts, observe first. React never. Your power is not in your ability to change the world. Your power is in your ability to remain unchanged by the world. You are the observer. You are the stillness in the center of the storm. Observe first. React never. Observe first. React never. Observe first. React never. Chapter 2. The Hidden Cost of Emotional Outbursts. The Invisible Ledger. Imagine that every time you speak, you are spending currency, not dollars or euros, but a much more valuable currency, social capital. Every time you show up to work, every time you interact with your family, and every time you post online, you are either depositing into your account of respect or you are withdrawing from it. Most people live in a state of emotional bankruptcy. They spend their respect as quickly as they earn it because they cannot control their impulses. They think that venting is a right. They think that being honest about their anger is a virtue. They are wrong. In the world of high performers, elite leaders, and emotionally neutral masters, an outburst is not honesty, it is a catastrophic loss. To master neutrality, you must look at every moment of frustration through the lens of a cold, calculating accountant. You must ask yourself, is this reaction worth the price I am about to pay? Because make no mistake, every outburst is a tax. The metabolic tax. Why you feel exhausted. Before we even look at your career or your relationships, let's look at your body. When you lose your temper, when you snap at your spouse, scream in traffic, or send that biting email, your body pays a literal biological tax. The moment you lose your neutrality, your adrenal glands flood your system with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate spikes, your blood pressure soars, and your digestive system shuts down to redirect energy to your muscles. This is the fight or flight response. In a state of anger, your body is burning fuel at an unsustainable rate. Have you ever noticed how exhausted you feel after a major argument? That isn't just mental fatigue, It is a metabolic crash. You have drained your battery to power a 30-second explosion. This is energy that could have been used for creativity, for deep work, or for building your future. Instead, you burned it all to satisfy a temporary urge to be right or heard. When you stay neutral, you keep your fuel. When you react, you leak energy. A leader who cannot control their emotions is like a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much talent they have, they will eventually run dry. Every outburst is a tax. Every outburst is a tax. The reputation tax, the story of Mark. Let's talk about Mark. Mark was a senior project manager at a top-tier engineering firm. He was brilliant, technically gifted, and had a track record of delivering projects under budget. He was the clear frontrunner for the Vice President of Operations role, a position that came with a six-figure raise and a seat at the executive table. Mark had one flaw: he was passionate. In his mind, his passion was proof that he cared. In the company's mind, his passion was a liability. The turning point happened on a Tuesday morning during a high-stakes strategy session. A junior analyst pointed out a minor flaw in Mark's projected timeline. It was a valid point, but Mark felt his ego being pricked. He felt the heat rise in his neck. Instead of observing the feeling, he became the feeling. He didn't just disagree, he exploded. He stood up, slammed his hand on the mahogany table, and shouted, "Do you have any idea how much work went into this? You've been here 6 months. Keep your mouth shut until you actually know how this industry works." The room went dead silent. The analyst looked at the floor. The CEO, sitting at the head of the table, didn't say a word. He just made a small note on his legal pad. Mark felt a rush of power for about 10 seconds. He felt like he had defended his territory. But that 10-second rush cost him 5 years of work. 2 weeks later, the VP promotion went to a colleague who was less technically skilled than Mark but was known for being unshakable. When Mark asked why he was passed over, the CEO was blunt: "Mark, you're the best engineer we have. But we can't put a man in a VP role who can be unraveled by a 24-year-old analyst. If you can't handle an internal meeting, how will you handle a board of directors during a recession? You're a risk we can't afford." Mark paid the tax. He paid it in lost wages, lost status, and a tarnished reputation that followed him for years. Every outburst is a tax. Every outburst is a tax. The tax on influence, the loss of the final word. There is a paradox in human communication. The more emotion you display, the less people listen to your message. Think of the person who is always complaining, always outraged, or always venting. When they start talking, what do? You tune them out. You label them as unstable or dramatic. Even if they have a valid point, the emotional noise drowns out the signal. Now, think of the person who almost never raises their voice. The person who remains neutral even when things go wrong. When that person finally speaks up and says, "This is unacceptable," the entire room stops. Their words have weight because they haven't been devalued by constant emotional inflation. Every time you have an outburst, you are devaluing your own voice. You are telling the world that your emotions are for sale and the price is cheap. If a minor inconvenience can make you lose your cool, you are telling everyone around you that you are small. Neutrality is the ultimate form of inflation control for your influence. By refusing to react to the small things, you ensure that when you do choose to speak, your words carry the force of a sledgehammer. Every outburst is a tax. Every outburst is a tax. The digital tax, the permanence of rage. In the modern world, the tax on emotional outbursts has become even more expensive because of the record button. We have all seen it. The Karen videos, the leaked hot MIC rants, the angry Twitter threads. In the past, if you had a meltdown, only the people in the room knew. Today, a 10-second loss of composure can be recorded, uploaded, and viewed by millions before you've even calmed down. An angry email is a permanent record of your weakness. Once you hit send, that outburst lives forever on a server. It can be forwarded to your boss, your clients, or your competitors. It is a digital footprint of a moment when you were not in control. Before you type a single word in anger, imagine that email being read aloud in a courtroom or printed on the front page of a newspaper. If that thought makes you cringe, You are about to pay a tax you cannot afford. Delete the draft. Close the laptop. Observe the urge to strike back and wait for the 90-second chemical dump to pass. Every outburst is a tax. Every outburst is a tax. The opportunity cost. The doors that never open. Perhaps the highest cost of emotional outbursts is the one you never see, the opportunity cost. When you are known as someone who is reactive, people stop bringing you fragile opportunities. They don't invite you to the secret meetings. They don't introduce you to their high-value mentors. They don't trust you with sensitive information. They like you, perhaps. They might even think you're talented. But they don't trust your judgment. They know that if things get heated, you might blow up the deal. So, they leave you out. You stay in the mid-level. You stay in the drama. You stay in the chaos. You never realize that the reason your career has plateaued or your relationships are failing isn't because of bad luck. It's because you have been paying a 30% tax on temper on everything you do. Practice the emotional audit. Tonight, I want you to perform an audit of your last 7 days. Identify every time you lost your neutrality. Assign a tax to each event. Did you snap at your partner? The tax is a loss of intimacy and 3 hours of tension. Did you get angry at a customer service rep? The tax is 500 calories of metabolic energy and a lowered self-image. Did you complain about a boss behind their back? The tax is the risk of that comment getting back to them and costing you a promotion. When you see the total cost written on paper, you will realize that emotional outbursts are the most expensive hobby you have. Repetitive reinforcement. The world wants you to react. It wants to tax you. It wants to drain your energy and steal your focus. Do not let it. When the anger rises, every outburst is a tax. When the ego wants to fight, every outburst is a tax. When the finger hovers over the send button, every outburst is a tax. You are too wealthy in potential to spend your life paying taxes to your impulses. Stay neutral. Keep your capital. Keep your power. Every outburst is a tax. 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 Chapter 3. Neutrality is strength, not weakness. The great misunderstanding. There is a persistent myth in our culture that to be neutral is to be a robot. We are told that passion is the fuel of life, and that if you aren't reacting, if you aren't showing joy, anger, or devastation at the appropriate times, you are somehow less than human. We equate being emotional with being authentic. This is a dangerous lie. In reality, being governed by your emotions is not authenticity. It is a lack of discipline. If a leaf is blown by every gust of wind, is it being authentic to the wind? No, it is simply powerless. To be truly powerful, you must be the mountain that remains unmoved regardless of which way the wind blows. Neutrality is not coldness. It is not apathy. It is not a lack of caring. Neutrality is power under control. It is the state of a coiled spring, silent, still, but containing an immense amount of potential energy. Neutrality does not mean nothing. Neutrality means everything. The engine in neutral. Think of a high-performance sports car. When the engine is in neutral, is the engine dead? Far from it. The engine is running. The pistons are moving. The fuel is burning. The power is there, vibrating under the hood. But because it is in neutral, that power is not yet committed to a direction. This is the state you must cultivate. Most people live their lives in gear. When someone insults them, they are slammed into reverse. When they get a minor win, they are slammed into first. They are constantly jerking back and forth, grinding their gears, and wearing out their transmission. The master of neutrality stays in neutral until they choose to shift. They feel the heat of the moment, they feel the surge of the adrenaline, but they stay in the center. They wait until the path is clear and the logic is sound. Only then do they engage the gear. When you stay neutral, you keep your options open. The moment you react, you have committed to a single, often destructive, path. Neutrality is the ultimate freedom because it is the ultimate refusal to be manipulated. Neutrality does not mean nothing. Neutrality means everything. The Olympic athlete, the science of the quiet eye. Let's look at the highest level of human performance, The Olympic Games. Specifically, consider the sport of archery or precision shooting. An Olympic archer stands 70 meters from a target. The gold center is the size of an apple. The wind is shifting. The crowd is silent, but the pressure of 4 years of training is resting on this one shot. If the archer gets excited because they are close to winning, they lose. If they get frustrated because they miss the last shot, they lose. Scientists have studied the brains of these elite performers. They found a phenomenon called the quiet eye. Just before the moment of peak performance, the elite athlete's brain enters a state of profound neutrality. Their heart rate actually slows down. Their brain waves shift from the chaotic beta state to the calm, focused alpha state. They aren't fighting their nerves. They aren't trying to be passionate. They are becoming a void. They are stripping away every emotion until all that is left is the mechanical execution of the task. They channel the stress not into a scream or a gesture, but into a singular point of precision. In that moment of neutrality, they are more powerful than any person shouting from the sidelines could ever be. Their strength is born from their stillness. Neutrality does not mean nothing. Neutrality means everything. The sword in the scabbard. In ancient martial arts traditions, the most feared warrior was not the one who walked around with his sword drawn, screaming and looking for a fight. The most feared warrior was the one whose sword remained in the scabbard. Why? Because a sword that is drawn is a known variable. You can see its length, its angle, and its speed. But a sword in the scabbard represents the void. It could strike at any moment, from any direction, with total surprise. Your emotional neutrality is your scabbard. When you don't react to an insult, the person who insulted you becomes uneasy. They were expecting a fight. They were expecting you to draw your sword. When you remain neutral, they realize they have no power over you. They don't know what you are thinking. They don't know what your next move is. Your silence is a threat to their ego. Your lack of reaction is a display of superior rank. In any social hierarchy, the person who is the least reactive is perceived as the person with the most power. The king does not need to shout. Only the peasant shouts to be heard. Neutrality does not mean nothing. Neutrality means everything. The trap of venting. We are often told by modern psychology that we need to vent our emotions, that if we don't let it out, we will explode. This is one of the most destructive pieces of advice ever given. Research shows that venting, screaming into a pillow, hitting a punching bag, or having a venting session with a friend actually increases your aggression. It doesn't release the emotion, it rehearses it. It builds a neural pathway that tells your brain, when I feel X, I must do Y. You are training yourself to be a reactive, volatile person. Neutrality offers a different path, observation and dissolution. Instead of letting it out, you look at the emotion. You see it for what it is, a temporary chemical surge. You don't push it down, suppression, and you don't let it out, expression. You simply stand in the center and let it burn itself out. This is not weakness. It takes 1,000 times more strength to sit with a burning emotion and stay still than it does to scream and break something. Neutrality is the ultimate test of your will. Neutrality does not mean nothing. Neutrality means everything. The physics of the 0 point. In physics, there is a concept called absolute zero, the temperature at which all molecular motion stops. It is a point of perfect stillness. While we cannot reach absolute zero in our bodies, we can reach the 0 point in our minds. The 0 point is the place where your ego disappears. When you are at the 0 point, you cannot be offended. Why? Because there is no self there to take offense. If someone calls you a name and you are in a neutral state, the name has nowhere to land. It passes through you like a ghost passing through a wall. When you stay in the 0 point, you become a black hole for drama. People throw their chaos at you, and it simply disappears. They try to bait you into an argument, and you simply look at them with a calm, steady gaze. Eventually, they get tired. Eventually, they realize that you are a different kind of human being. You are not cold. You are solid. You are the foundation upon which everything else is built. Practice the neutrality scan. To build this strength, you must practice the neutrality scan several times a day. Stop what you are doing. Check your body. Are your shoulders hunched? Drop them. Is your jaw clenched? Relax it. Is your internal monologue racing? Stop the words. Find that 0 point, that place of no reaction. Stay there for 60 seconds. Feel the power of being completely unattached to the world around you. This is your base state. The more time you spend here, the harder it will be for anyone to pull you out of it. Repetitive coaching. As you move through your day, remember that every time you choose not to react, you are gaining strength. You are not losing, you are winning a war of attrition against chaos. When they expect to scream, give them silence. When they expect a tear, give them a steady gaze. When they expect to collapse, give them the mountain. Neutrality does not mean nothing. Neutrality means everything. Neutrality does not mean nothing. Neutrality means everything. Neutrality does not mean nothing. Neutrality means everything. Chapter 4. Rewire your brain for calm. The architecture of the reactivity. Before you can change your mind, you must understand the machine you are operating. Your brain is not a single, unified organ. It is a layered system built over millions of years of evolution. At the base of your brain sits the amygdala, a small, almond-shaped cluster that serves as your threat detector. It is fast, it is loud, and it is irrational. When the amygdala senses a threat, whether it's a tiger in the grass or a sarcastic comment from your boss, it sends an instant signal to the rest of your body to prepare for war. This is the low road of brain processing. It happens in milliseconds, long before your conscious mind even knows what's happening. Above the amygdala lies the prefrontal cortex, PFC. This is the executive suite. This is the part of the brain responsible for logic, long-term planning, and emotional regulation. This is the high road. It is sophisticated and wise, but it is slow. In a reactive person, the low road is a 12-lane highway, while the high road is a dirt path. To stay emotionally neutral, you must engage in a process of neural roadwork. You must widen the path to your logical mind and narrow the highway to your reactive mind. You must train your mind like a muscle. Pause. Breathe. Decide. The Navy SEAL. Calm under killing pressure. Nowhere is this neural roadwork more evident than in the training of the United States Navy SEALs. Consider a recruit undergoing pool comp, one of the most grueling parts of their training. The recruit is underwater, breathing through a scuba regulator. Suddenly, instructors dive in and attack him. They rip his mask off, tie knots in his air hoses, and pull the regulator out of his mouth. The recruit is underwater, blind, and suffocating. The human body has a hardwired response to drowning, panic. Every fiber of the recruit's biology is screaming at him to kick to the surface to find air. But if he does that, he fails the course. To succeed, he must remain underwater and solve the knots in his hoses while holding his breath. How do they do it? They don't do it through toughness alone. They do it through a specific 4-step mental process called the Big Four of mental toughness. They use goal setting, mental rehearsal, self-talk, and, most importantly, arousal control through breathing. They have trained their brains to recognize the panic signal and immediately override it with a calm protocol. When the air stops, the SEAL doesn't flail. He pauses. He breathes, using the air remaining in his lungs. He decides on the first knot to untie. Because he can stay neutral in a life or death situation, he can function in a way that an untrained person cannot. Pause. Breathe. Decide. Tool 1. The mechanical override, box breathing. The first step in rewiring your brain is mastering your breath. This is not meditation in the way most people think of it. This is a mechanical override of your nervous system. Your breath is the only part of your autonomic nervous system that you can control consciously. By changing the rhythm of your breath, you can send a signal through the vagus nerve directly to the brain, telling it to stand down. The technique is called box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold that breath for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Hold the empty state for 4 seconds. When you do this, you are manually slowing your heart rate. You are clearing the cortisol out of your bloodstream. You are physically forcing your brain to move from the low road, amygdala, to the high road, prefrontal cortex. You must practice this when you are not stressed. You don't go to the gym and try to bench press 400 pounds on your first day. You start with the bar. Practice box breathing while you are sitting at a red light. Practice it while you are waiting for a meeting to start. Build the muscle so that when the crisis hits, the muscle memory takes over. Pause. Breathe. Decide. Tool 2. Mental rehearsal, the pre-mortem. The second tool in your rewiring kit is visualization. Your brain has a fascinating quirk. It cannot fully distinguish between a vivid imagination and a real event. When you visualize a scenario, you are firing the same neural pathways that would fire if the event were actually happening. Elite performers use this to pre-program their neutrality. Before a difficult conversation, don't just hope for the best. Sit in silence and visualize the person saying the most offensive thing possible to you. See their face. Hear their voice. But then, visualize yourself remaining perfectly still. Visualize yourself taking a breath and responding with a calm, neutral tone. By doing this, you are prepaying the emotional tax. You are desensitizing your amygdala. When the event actually happens, your brain says, "Oh, I've been here before." We don't react here. We stay neutral. You have built a bridge of calm over the valley of chaos. Pause. Breathe. Decide. Tool 3. The 3-second gap. Reactivity is a habit of speed. Neutrality is a habit of delay. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, famously wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." For most people, that space is non-existent. The stimulus happens, and the response follows instantly, like a knee-jerk reflex. To rewire your brain, you must consciously widen that space. Starting now, implement the 3-second rule. Whenever someone asks you a question that makes you uncomfortable, or someone insults you, or a stressful email hits your inbox, wait 3 seconds before you do anything. In those 3 seconds, you aren't just waiting, you are working. Second 1. Observe the physical sensation. Second 2. Perform 1 cycle of box breathing. Second 3. Ask yourself, what is the most neutral, effective move I can make? This 3-second gap is the difference between a leader and a follower. It is the difference between a master and a slave. It is the gap where your freedom lives. Pause. Breathe. Decide. The muscle of attention. Emotional neutrality is also a function of where you place your attention. Your brain has a limited bandwidth for what it can process. If you fill your bandwidth with the details of the problem, you have no room left for the solution. Think of your attention as a flashlight in a dark room. Most people point the flashlight at the monster in the corner. They stare at the monster, they describe the monster, they worry about the monster. As a result, the monster is all they see. The neutral mind points the flashlight at the exit sign. When a crisis hits, you must train your brain to immediately look for the next right thing. Don't focus on why this happened, or who is to blame, or how unfair it is. Those are emotional rabbit holes. Instead, ask, what is the very next action I need to take to move toward the objective? By focusing on action, you starve the emotion of the attention it needs to survive. You move from a state of feeling to a state of doing. Practice the small stress drill. You cannot expect to stay neutral during a divorce or a corporate collapse if you haven't trained on the small things. To rewire your brain, you need resistance training. Seek out minor discomforts. When you are standing in a long line at the grocery store and the person in front of you is taking forever, pause, breathe, decide. Decide to remain perfectly still. Observe your irritation as if it were a curious insect. When your internet is slow and you have a deadline, pause, breathe, decide. Decide to use the extra seconds to relax your shoulders rather than tensing them. When someone says something slightly rude, pause, breathe, decide. Decide to let the silence hang for a moment before responding. These are your representatives. Each time you do this, you are physically thickening the grey matter in your prefrontal cortex. You are literally building a calm muscle. Repetitive coaching. The brain is plastic. You are not stuck with the personality you have today. You can become the person who is unshakable. You can become the person who remains calm when the world is on fire. But it will not happen by accident. It happens through the relentless application of the pause. When the world pushes, pause. When the heart races, breathe. When the ego screams, decide. You are the pilot, not the passenger. You are the architect, not the building. Take control of the machine. Pause. Breathe. Decide. Pause. Breathe. Decide. Pause. Breathe. Decide. Pause. Breathe. Decide. Chapter 5. Silence is your weapon. The vacuum of the void. We live in a world of constant noise. We are surrounded by pings, notifications, opinions, and chatter. In our modern society, we have been conditioned to believe that if we aren't speaking, we aren't being heard. We have been taught that to be strong is to have the last word. We feel an almost physical discomfort when a conversation falls into a lull. We rush to fill the silence with ums, ahs, or meaningless small talk. But the master of emotional neutrality knows a secret that the rest of the world has forgotten. Silence is not empty. Silence is heavy. Silence is a vacuum. And in physics, a vacuum always seeks to be filled. When you remain silent in the face of a provocation, you create a psychological vacuum. The other person, the one who is shouting, the one who is insulting you, the one who is trying to manipulate you, will feel an overwhelming, desperate urge to fill that space. And in their desperation to fill the void, they will reveal their hand. They will over-explain. They will backtrack. They will crumble. Silence speaks louder. Silence speaks stronger. Silence always wins. The negotiator's secret, the price of the first word. Let's look at the world of high-stakes negotiation. Imagine a boardroom where $100 million deal is on the table. One side makes an offer. It's a lowball offer, an insulting one designed to rattle the other party. An emotional person reacts immediately. They get defensive. They say, "That's ridiculous. Do you know what our overhead is? We can't possibly accept that." By reacting, they have given the other side valuable information. They have shown that they are frustrated. They have shown their bottom line through their agitation. They have lost the upper hand. Now, consider the master negotiator. When the lowball offer is made, he doesn't flinch. He doesn't argue. He simply leans back, maintains a neutral expression, and says nothing. He looks the other party in the eye and waits. 5 seconds pass. The silence is uncomfortable. 10 seconds pass. The other party begins to fidget. 15 seconds pass. The vacuum is now so heavy that the person who made the offer can no longer stand it. They think, maybe the offer was too low. Maybe I've offended him so much that he's going to walk away. To break the tension, the person who made the offer speaks first. They say, "Well, that's just a starting point. We have some flexibility on the terms, of course." The master negotiator hasn't said a single word, yet he has already won a concession. He didn't use logic. He didn't use aggression. He used the weapon of silence. He remained neutral, and the other person's own anxiety did the work for him. Silence speaks louder. Silence speaks stronger. Silence always wins. The grey rock method. Silence as a shield. In personal relationships, especially when dealing with toxic or high-conflict personalities, silence is your only true defense. These individuals thrive on your reaction. They are emotional vampires. They poke, prod, and insult you specifically to see you get upset. Your anger is their fuel. Your tears are their validation. If you argue back, they win. Even if you win the argument, they win because they have successfully pulled you down into the mud with them. The neutral master uses what psychologists call the grey rock method. You become as uninteresting as a grey rock. When they insult you, you don't defend yourself. When they try to start a drama, you don't take the bait. You respond with short, neutral, non-committal phrases. "I see." "Okay. That's an interesting perspective." Or, most powerfully, you say nothing at all. When you refuse to provide the emotional fuel, the fire dies out. The toxic person gets bored. They can't play with someone who won't react. By using silence, you are setting a boundary that cannot be breached. You are saying, without saying a word, you do not have the power to move me. Silence speaks louder. Silence speaks stronger. Silence always wins. The difference between silence and the silent treatment. It is important to make a distinction here. Emotional neutrality is not the silent treatment. The silent treatment is a passive-aggressive tactic used to punish someone. It is rooted in anger and a desire to control. When you use the silent treatment, you are still in gear, you are still being driven by your emotions. The silence of neutrality is different. It is not an act of punishment, it is an act of preservation. It is the choice to remain still because you realize that words are unnecessary. It is the choice to listen rather than speak. When you are silent from a place of neutrality, you are observant. You are watching the other person's body language. You are noticing their tone. You are gathering intelligence. While they are busy talking, you are busy learning. The person who talks the most in a room is usually the one who knows the least. The person who is silent is the one who is in control of the data. Silence speaks louder. Silence speaks stronger. Silence always wins. Mastering the wait time. Most people have a wait time of less than 1 second. They respond the instant someone finishes a sentence. To weaponize silence, you must extend your wait time. Starting today, when someone speaks to you, especially in a tense situation, practice the 5-second count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. During those 5 seconds, maintain eye contact. Keep your face neutral. Do not nod. Do not shake your head. Just be present. You will find that most people cannot handle 5 seconds of silence. They will continue talking. They will start to clarify their point. They will often contradict what they just said. In those 5 seconds, you have allowed them to talk themselves into a corner. This is also incredibly effective in leadership. When you ask a team member why a deadline was missed, don't interrupt their excuses. Ask the question, then sit in silence. They will give you the surface-level excuse first. If you stay silent, they will eventually give you the truth. The internal silence. Quieting the ego. The most difficult silence to master is the one inside your own head. Even when we are physically silent, our minds are often screaming. Our ego is shouting, tell them they're wrong. Tell them how much you've done. Don't let them talk to you like that. Internal silence is the ability to tell your ego to sit down and be quiet. It is the realization that yourself does not need to be defended. When you truly understand that another person's opinion of you is none of your business, the need to speak disappears. When you realize that 90% of arguments are just two egos shouting at each other for validation, you lose interest in participating. Silence becomes your weapon because it proves that you are self-contained. You don't need to be right. You don't need to have the final word. You already have the final power because you are the one who is unmoved. Silence speaks louder. Silence speaks stronger. Silence always wins. The strength of the unspoken. History is full of leaders who used silence as a hallmark of their power. Think of the image of the Stoic leader, the one who sits at the end of the table, listening to all the advisors argue, and then makes a single, decisive statement at the end. That leader is respected not for their eloquence, but for their restraint. Their silence suggests a depth of thought that constant talking cannot convey. It suggests that they are not easily swayed by the noise of the moment. When you speak less, your words gain value. They become like gold, rare and precious. When you speak constantly, your words become like paper, cheap and plentiful. If you want people to value your thoughts, stop giving them away for free at every opportunity. Make them earn your words through the silence. Practice the silent hour. To train this weapon, I want you to practice a silent hour once a day. This is not a meditation. This is an exercise in social restraint. For 1 hour, whether you are with people or alone, commit to speaking only when absolutely necessary. If someone speaks to you, respond as briefly and neutrally as possible. Do not offer opinions. Do not fill the gaps in conversation. Notice how it feels. Notice the urge to jump in. Notice the anxiety that arises when a silence lasts too long. Observe that anxiety and let it pass. By practicing silence in a controlled environment, you are sharpening your weapon for the moments when you will truly need it. Repetitive coaching. The world is noisy. The world is reactive. The world is desperate for attention. You are none of those things. You are the silence. When they shout, be silent. When they bait you, be silent. When they demand an answer, wait. You are not losing the conversation. You are winning the war of the will. Your silence is the ultimate proof of your neutrality. Silence speaks louder. Silence speaks stronger. Silence always wins. Silence speaks louder. Silence speaks stronger. Silence always wins. Silence speaks louder. Silence speaks stronger. Silence always wins. Chapter 6. Stop seeking validation. The external compass. Most people carry their heart in their hands, offering it to every passerby, hoping someone will tell them it is valuable. They live their lives guided by an external compass. If the world smiles at them, they feel successful. If the world frowns, they feel like a failure. This is not living, this is performing. And if you are performing for an audience, you are never in control of the stage. Emotional neutrality is the process of smashing that external compass and replacing it with an internal north. It is the realization that the only person who needs to validate your existence is you. When you seek validation from others, you are handing them a remote control to your nervous system. You are saying, "Here, you decide if I should feel happy today. You decide if I should feel confident. You decide if I am worthy." To stay neutral, you must take that remote control back. You must become indifferent to the applause and the boos alike. Their opinion is not your chain. Their opinion is not your chain. The biological root, the fear of the outcast. To overcome the need for validation, you must first understand why it is so hard to let go. For our ancestors living on the African savanna 50,000 years ago, being liked was a matter of survival. If the tribe didn't validate you, if they didn't approve of your contribution, they would cast you out. And in the ancient world, to be an outcast was to die. Your brain still carries this primitive exclusion alarm. When someone criticizes you or ignores you, your brain registers it as a physical threat. It triggers the same stress response as a predator in the bushes. This is why a mean comment on the internet can ruin your entire day. Your lizard brain thinks the tribe is turning on you. But we no longer live in a small tribe. We live in a world of 8 billion people. The person criticizing you on social media isn't your tribal elder. They are a stranger you will never meet. Their disapproval has zero impact on your survival. To be neutral, you must train your modern mind to override this ancient alarm. You must recognize that the fear of being disliked is a ghost from the past that has no power over your present. Their opinion is not your chain. Their opinion is not your chain. The social media outrage cycle, emotional slavery. Nowhere is the cost of validation more apparent than in the digital landscape. Social media platforms are engineered by some of the smartest psychologists in the world specifically to exploit your need for validation. Every like, every heart, and every retweet is a microdose of dopamine, a hit of tribal approval. But the inverse is also true. The outrage cycle thrives on your reaction. When you post something and someone responds with vitriol or cancellation, they are pulling on your chain. They are trying to provoke a reaction because, in the attention economy, your reaction is their profit. Think of the outrage addicts you see online. People who spend their lives in a state of perpetual anger, jumping from one scandal to the next. They have no neutrality. They are entirely dependent on the collective opinion of the digital mob. If the mob is angry, they are angry. If the mob is offended, they are offended. They are puppets on a million strings. To live above the chaos, you must disconnect. You must reach a point where 1,000 likes doesn't lift your mood and 1,000 dislikes doesn't lower it. You must see social media for what it is, a hall of mirrors. The reflections aren't real. Only the person standing in the room is real. Their opinion is not your chain. Their opinion is not your chain. The locus of control, internal versus external. Psychologists use a term called the locus of control. People with an external locus of control believe that their lives are determined by outside forces, luck, fate, or the opinions of others. They are the victims of the world. They are the ones who say, "He made me so angry," or "She ruined my day." By using this language, they are admitting that their internal state is owned by someone else. People with an internal locus of control believe that they are the primary cause of their own life experiences. They realize that while they cannot control what happens to them, they have absolute authority over how they process it. The master of neutrality has a 100% internal locus of control. When someone insults them, they don't think, "That person is mean." They think, "That person is attempting to offer me a gift of anger. I choose not to accept it." If you don't accept the gift, it still belongs to the person who tried to give it. You remain clean. You remain neutral. You remain free. Their opinion is not your chain. Their opinion is not your chain. The spotlight effect, the reality of indifference. One of the biggest obstacles to neutrality is the spotlight effect. This is the psychological phenomenon where we overestimate how much other people are noticing our flaws, our mistakes, or our actions. We walk through life thinking everyone is watching us, judging us, and keeping a tally of our failures. Here is the liberating truth. No one is thinking about you. Everyone else is also the protagonist of their own movie. They are too busy worrying about their own hair, their own mistakes, and their own need for validation to spend more than a passing second thinking about you. When you realize that most people's judgment of you is fleeting, shallow, and mostly a reflection of their own insecurities, the need for their validation disappears. You are killing yourself to impress people who are too distracted to notice. Stop trying to win a game that no one else is actually playing. Their opinion is not your chain. Their opinion is not your chain. The good job trap. Validation doesn't just come in the form of avoiding criticism. It also comes in the form of seeking praise. This is the good job trap. If you are a person who needs to be told you did a great job in order to feel successful, you are just as vulnerable as the person who fears criticism. Why? Because the person who has the power to give you the high of praise also has the power to give you the low of withholding it. If your boss knows you are a praise junkie, they can manipulate you. They can give you more work for less pay simply by feeding you words of affirmation. If your partner knows you need constant reassurance, the relationship becomes a cycle of dependency rather than a partnership of equals. Neutrality means doing the work because the work is worth doing, not because you want a gold star. It means being the first and final judge of your own efforts. When you finish a project, look at it and ask, "Did I meet my own standards?" If the answer is yes, then the world's opinion is irrelevant. If the world loves it, fine. If the world hates it, fine. You have already moved on to the next task. Their opinion is not your chain. Their opinion is not your chain. Practice the indifference audit. To break the habit of seeking validation, you must perform an audit of your motivations. For the next 24 hours, before you speak, before you post, and before you act, ask yourself one question. Am I doing this for the result, or am I doing this for the reaction? If you are about to post a photo, are you doing it to share a memory, or are you doing it to see how many notifications you get? If you are about to speak in a meeting, are you offering a solution, or are you trying to sound like the smartest person in the room? If you are buying something new, do you actually need it, or do you want people to see you having it? If the answer is the reaction, stop. Do not do it. Sit with the discomfort of not being validated. Feel the itch of the ego wanting to be seen, and simply observe it. By refusing to scratch the itch, you are teaching your brain that you don't need the external hit to survive. You are breaking the chain. The freedom of being the villain. To be truly neutral, you must be willing to be the villain in someone else's story. You must accept that no matter how good you are, someone, somewhere, will dislike you. Someone will find your neutrality arrogant. Someone will find your boundaries selfish. Let them. Their version of you is not the real you. It is a character they have created in their own mind to justify their own emotions. You are not responsible for the fictional version of yourself that lives in other people's heads. When you stop trying to correct the record and stop trying to make everyone understand your side, you gain a massive amount of time and energy. You stay in your lane. You stay in your power. You stay neutral. Repetitive reinforcement. The world will try to pull you into its drama. It will try to make you dance for its approval. It will try to shackle you with its expectations. Every time you feel that pull, remember your mantra. When they criticize, their opinion is not your chain. When they ignore you, their opinion is not your chain. When they praise you, their opinion is not your chain. You are the mountain. The clouds of opinion may pass over you, they may rain on you, or they may bring sun, but the mountain remains. Unshaken, unchanged, undefiled. Their opinion is not your chain. 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 Chapter 7. Control your inner dialogue. The roommate in your head. If you were to follow a stranger around all day and speak to them the way you speak to yourself, you would likely be arrested for harassment. We have a roommate inside our minds that never stops talking. This narrator provides a running commentary on everything we do, everything we see, and everything we feel. For most people, this narrator is a disaster. It is a critic, a pessimist, and a dramatist. It takes a simple event, like a late train, and turns it into a tragedy about your incompetence or the world's unfairness. Emotional neutrality is impossible as long as your inner dialogue is chaotic. Your emotions do not respond to the world. They respond to the story your inner narrator tells you about the world. If the story is a disaster, your body will feel a disaster. If the story is neutral data, your body will remain calm. You must realize a fundamental truth of the mind. What you say to yourself is law. What you say to yourself is law. What you say to yourself is law. The narrative fallacy, events versus stories. Imagine two people are fired from their jobs on the same day. The first person's inner dialogue says, "This is a catastrophe. I'm a failure. I'll never find another job. Everyone is going to look down on me. How could they do this to me after everything I've done?" This person is now in a state of high emotional reactivity. Their heart is racing, their ego is bruised, and they are likely to lash out or spiral into depression. The second person's inner dialogue says, "The employment contract has been terminated. This is an unexpected change in status. I have 4 months of savings. My first task is to update my resume. My second task is to contact my network." This person is emotionally neutral. They aren't happy about being fired, but they are effective. The external event, getting fired, was the same for both. The difference in their emotional state was dictated entirely by the language of their inner dialogue. The first person used emotional adjectives, catastrophe, failure, unfair. The second person used operational nouns, contract, status, savings, task. To be neutral, you must strip the adjectives away from your self-talk. You must become a reporter of facts, not a writer of dramas. What you say to yourself is law. What you say to yourself is law. The elite performer, the operational voice. Let's look at the inner dialogue of a world-class trauma surgeon during a surgery that is going wrong. The patient's blood pressure is dropping. There is a bleed they can't find. The room is tense. If the surgeon thinks, "Oh no, I'm losing him, I'm going to fail, this is horrible," their hands will shake. Their peripheral vision will narrow. Their brain will lose the ability to think creatively. Instead, the elite surgeon uses operational self-talk. They talk to themselves in the third person or in purely objective terms. They say, "The bleed is in the lower cavity. Pressure is at 80/40ths. Suction here. Clamp there. Focus on the next stitch." They aren't repressing their emotions. They are simply not giving the emotions any linguistic fuel. By keeping the inner dialogue focused on actions and objects, they keep the prefrontal cortex engaged. They maintain their neutrality because they have declared it law that only objective data matters in this moment. You must do the same in your daily life. When a crisis hits, stop asking "Why is this happening?" and start asking "What is the next objective?" What you say to yourself is law. What you say to yourself is law. The neurobiology of belief. The subconscious is a soldier. Your subconscious mind is not a philosopher. It is a soldier. It does not argue with the orders it is given. It simply carries them out. If you say to yourself, "I'm so stressed, I can't handle this," Your subconscious accepts that as an absolute command. It will immediately begin to increase your cortisol levels, tense your muscles, and shut down your creative problem-solving centers to match your stated reality. You have literally ordered yourself into a state of panic. If, however, you say, "I am currently processing a high-pressure situation. I have the resources to manage the next 10 minutes," your subconscious accepts that as well. It provides a steady stream of focused energy. It keeps the logic gates open. This is why the repetitive phrase is so vital. When you tell yourself, "I am unshakable," or "I am the observer," you are not just thinking positive. You are issuing a standing order to your nervous system. You are setting the law of your internal state. What you say to yourself is law. What you say to yourself is law. Removing the always and never. The enemies of emotional neutrality are the words always and never. These are the hallmarks of a reactive mind. They always disrespect me. I'll never get this right. This always happens to me. These words are globalizations. They take a single, isolated event and turn it into a permanent, unchangeable reality. They trigger a sense of hopelessness and rage because they suggest that the situation is out of your control. The neutral master replaces these with temporal markers. Instead of "this always happens," say "this is happening now." Instead of "they never listen," say "they did not listen to this specific point." By narrowing the scope of the event to the here and now, you make it manageable. You rob the event of its power to define your life. You keep the fire small so that it can be easily extinguished. What you say to yourself is law. What you say to yourself is law. Third-person self-talk. Creating the gap. One of the most powerful psychological tools for neutrality is Iliism, the practice of referring to yourself in the third person. Research from the University of Michigan shows that when people talk to themselves using their own name rather than the word I, they are significantly better at regulating their emotions. Why? Because it forces the observational mind to activate. If I say, "I am really nervous about this presentation," I am immersed in the feeling. If I say, "John is experiencing a nervous reaction to the upcoming presentation," I have created a gap. I am now looking at John as if he were a character in a movie. I can provide John with objective advice. I can stay neutral because the observer is not the one feeling the nerves. Try this today. When you feel a surge of emotion, address yourself by name in your head. Say your name. You are feeling a surge of anger. Observe it. Let it pass. What is the next move? This simple shift in perspective breaks the emotional I and installs the neutral observer. What you say to yourself is law. What you say to yourself is law. The law of the next right move. In moments of extreme chaos, your inner dialogue should shrink until it only covers the next 5 seconds. When everything is falling apart, the mind wants to look at the next 5 months or the next 5 years. It wants to catastrophize about the future. This is the death of neutrality. The elite performer uses the law of the next right move. Their inner dialogue sounds like this. Pick up the phone. Dial the number. State the facts. Listen to the response. Breathe. Next move. By keeping your inner dialogue micro-focused on the immediate physical action, you prevent the emotional hijack. You don't give the brain enough room to build a drama. You stay in the present, and the present is always a place of neutrality. The future is where anxiety lives. The past is where regret lives. The present is where power lives. What you say to yourself is law. What you say to yourself is law. Practice. The internal transcript. To master this, you must become aware of your current laws. For 1 hour today, I want you to act as if you are a court reporter. Every time your inner voice speaks, mentally write it down. Notice how often you use adjectives. Notice how often you generalize with always or never. Notice how often you speak to yourself as a victim. Once you have identified a reactive thought, overrule it. The thought, "I'm going to fail this meeting." The overrule, "The meeting is a series of questions and answers. I have prepared the data. I will respond to each question as it arises." You are the judge in your own courtroom. Do not allow emotional hearsay to be admitted as evidence. Stick to the facts. Stick to the law. Repetitive coaching. Your mind is the control room of your life. Every word you speak internally is a button pressed or a lever pulled. If you want a neutral life, you must use neutral language. You must be firm. You must be disciplined. When the world gets loud, your inner voice must get quiet and objective. You are the commander. Your thoughts are your troops. Do not let them mutiny. What you say to yourself is law. 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 If I say, I am really nervous about this presentation, I am immersed in the feeling. If I say, John is experiencing a nervous reaction to the upcoming presentation, I have created a gap. I am now looking at John as if he were a character in a movie. I can provide John with objective advice. I can stay neutral because the observer is not the one feeling the nerves. Try this today. When you feel a surge of emotion, address yourself by name in your head. Say, your name, you are feeling a surge of anger. Observe it. Let it pass. What is the next move? This simple shift in perspective breaks the emotional I and installs the neutral observer. What you say to yourself is law. What you say to yourself is law. The law of the next right move. In moments of extreme chaos, your inner dialogue should shrink until it only covers the next 5 seconds. When everything is falling apart, the mind wants to look at the next 5 months or the next 5 years. It wants to catastrophize about the future. This is the death of neutrality. The elite performer uses the law of the next right move. Their inner dialogue sounds like this. Pick up the phone. Dial the number. State the facts. Listen to the response. Breathe. Next move. By keeping your inner dialogue micro-focused on the immediate physical action, you prevent the emotional hijack. You don't give the brain enough room to build a drama. You stay in the present, and the present is always a place of neutrality. The future is where anxiety lives. The past is where regret lives. The present is where power lives. What you say to yourself is law. What you say to yourself is law. Practice. The internal transcript. To master this, you must become aware of your current laws. For 1 hour today, I want you to act as if you are a court reporter. Every time your inner voice speaks, mentally write it down. Notice how often you use adjectives. Notice how often you generalize with always or never. Notice how often you speak to yourself as a victim. Once you have identified a reactive thought, overrule it. The thought, I'm going to fail this meeting. The overrule, the meeting is a series of questions and answers. I have prepared the data. I will respond to each question as it arises. You are the judge in your own courtroom. Do not allow emotional hearsay to be admitted as evidence. Stick to the facts. Stick to the law. Repetitive coaching. Your mind is the control room of your life. Every word you speak internally is a button pressed or a lever pulled. If you want a neutral life, you must use neutral language. You must be firm. You must be disciplined. When the world gets loud, your inner voice must get quiet and objective. You are the commander. Your thoughts are your troops. Do not let them mutiny. What you say to yourself is law. 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 When the task is done, you will find that the anger has vanished, replaced by a sense of neutral satisfaction. You didn't just get over it, you spent it. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. Turning criticism into innovation. In the professional world, criticism is often the primary trigger for anger. When someone tells you your work isn't good enough, or your idea is flawed, the ego wants to defend itself. It wants to explain why the critic is wrong. The emotionally neutral person hears the criticism and asks one question: is there a grain of truth here that I can use to become unassailable? If someone calls your presentation boring, don't get angry at them. Get productively angry at the presentation. Use that heat to redesign the slides, to tighten the narrative, and to practice your delivery until it is world-class. The best revenge is not an argument. The best revenge is a massive, undeniable success. When you use anger to improve, the person who criticized you has actually done you a favor. They have provided the spark for your next evolution. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. The trap of resentment. There is a danger in this process. Resentment. Resentment is what happens when you keep the anger inside but don't give it an action. It sits there and rots. It turns into a poison that destroys your neutrality from the inside out. Anger must be transformed, not stored. If you are angry at your partner, and you just stay neutral but don't actually do anything to improve the relationship or your own life, you are just building a bomb. Transformation requires movement. If you can't move toward a solution with the person, move toward a goal for yourself. But move. Neutrality is not standing still. It is moving with a clear head regardless of the emotional weather. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. Practice. The transformation trigger. Today, I want you to create a transformation trigger. Identify one task that you find difficult or boring, something you've been putting off. Now, wait for a moment of frustration. It will come. Someone will be rude, or a piece of technology won't work, or you'll see something on the news that upsets you. The moment you feel that spike of anger, say the mantra, "Anger is fuel." Immediately, without stopping to think or vent, start that difficult task. Don't check your phone. Don't get a coffee. Just start. Work with the heat in your chest. Notice how the anger makes you move faster. Notice how it cuts through your usual excuses. Do this 10 times over the next week. You will begin to look forward to moments of frustration because you will know how much work you are about to get done. You will move from being a victim of your temper to being a master of your energy. Repetitive coaching. Anger is a wild horse. If you let it run free, it will throw you. If you try to kill it, you lose its strength. But if you break it and ride it, it will take you wherever you want to go. Stop fearing the heat. Stop apologizing for the fire. Channel it. Use it. Win with it. When they doubt you, fuel. When they insult you, focus. When they block you, power. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. When the task is done, you will find that the anger has vanished, replaced by a sense of neutral satisfaction. You didn't just get over it, you spent it. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. Turning criticism into innovation. In the professional world, criticism is often the primary trigger for anger. When someone tells you your work isn't good enough, or your idea is flawed, the ego wants to defend itself. It wants to explain why the critic is wrong. The emotionally neutral person hears the criticism and asks one question: is there a grain of truth here that I can use to become unassailable? If someone calls your presentation boring, don't get angry at them. Get productively angry at the presentation. Use that heat to redesign the slides, to tighten the narrative, and to practice your delivery until it is world-class. The best revenge is not an argument. The best revenge is a massive, undeniable success. When you use anger to improve, the person who criticized you has actually done you a favor. They have provided the spark for your next evolution. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. The trap of resentment. There is a danger in this process. Resentment. Resentment is what happens when you keep the anger inside but don't give it an action. It sits there and rots. It turns into a poison that destroys your neutrality from the inside out. Anger must be transformed, not stored. If you are angry at your partner, and you just stay neutral but don't actually do anything to improve the relationship or your own life, you are just building a bomb. Transformation requires movement. If you can't move toward a solution with the person, move toward a goal for yourself. But move. Neutrality is not standing still. It is moving with a clear head regardless of the emotional weather. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. Practice. The transformation trigger. Today, I want you to create a transformation trigger. Identify one task that you find difficult or boring, something you've been putting off. Now, wait for a moment of frustration. It will come. Someone will be rude, or a piece of technology won't work, or you'll see something on the news that upsets you. The moment you feel that spike of anger, say the mantra, "Anger is fuel." Immediately, without stopping to think or vent, start that difficult task. Don't check your phone. Don't get a coffee. Just start. Work with the heat in your chest. Notice how the anger makes you move faster. Notice how it cuts through your usual excuses. Do this 10 times over the next week. You will begin to look forward to moments of frustration because you will know how much work you are about to get done. You will move from being a victim of your temper to being a master of your energy. Repetitive coaching. Anger is a wild horse. If you let it run free, it will throw you. If you try to kill it, you lose its strength. But if you break it and ride it, it will take you wherever you want to go. Stop fearing the heat. Stop apologizing for the fire. Channel it. Use it. Win with it. When they doubt you, fuel. When they insult you, focus. When they block you, power. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. Anger is fuel. Anger is focus. Anger is power, not pain. Identifying the energy vampires. To build effective armor, you must know what you are defending against. In the realm of emotional neutrality, your primary enemy is the energy vampire. These are individuals who thrive on emotional drama. They don't want solutions, they want an audience. They poke at you, they complain to you, and they try to pull you into their reality of chaos. If you are neutral, they will try even harder to get a rise out of you, because your calm is a challenge to their chaos. You must apply the neutrality audit to your inner circle. Ask yourself, does this person respect my time? After spending time with this person, do I feel energized or drained? Do they only reach out when they need emotional labor from me? If someone is a consistent drain on your neutrality, you must set a structural boundary. This might mean you only see them once a month. It might mean you only communicate via text so you can control the timing of the interaction. It might mean you grey rock them, becoming so boring and non-reactive that they eventually find a different victim to feed on. Boundaries are armor. Boundaries are power. Boundaries are survival. The physicality of boundaries. Boundaries are not just mental, they are physical and temporal. Temporal boundaries. This is your time. You must decide when you are on and when you are off. If you answer work emails at 9 p.m., you have no boundary. You are allowing the world to invade your home. Physical boundaries. This is your space. Your home, your desk, your phone. If you allow notifications to ping all day, you are allowing the world to poke your brain whenever it wants. A master of neutrality controls their inputs. They turn off notifications. They curate their feed. They protect their golden hours of sleep and focus. They realize that every input is a potential trigger for a reaction, so they limit the number of inputs they receive. By controlling the gate, you reduce the workload of your observational mind. It is much easier to stay neutral when only 5 things are trying to upset you, rather than 500. Boundaries are armor. Boundaries are power. Boundaries are survival. The neutrality of the end. Sometimes, a boundary requires a total exit. This is the most difficult move for many, but it is often the most necessary for survival. Whether it is a toxic job, a parasitic friendship, or a destructive relationship, there comes a point where staying neutral within the situation is no longer possible because the situation itself is designed to destroy neutrality. Walking away is the ultimate neutral act. It is not an act of anger, it is an act of finality. You don't need to have a big talk. You don't need to scream. You don't need to explain why they were wrong. You simply stop participating. You remove yourself from the equation. When you leave a toxic situation neutrally, you take your power with you. If you leave in a rage, you have left a piece of yourself behind for them to chew on. Walk away with your head high and your heart still. Boundaries are armor. Boundaries are power. Boundaries are survival. Practice the boundary audit. Tonight, I want you to perform a boundary audit. Draw a circle on a piece of paper. This is your circle of peace. Inside the circle, write the names of people and activities that support your neutrality. Outside the circle, write the names of the leakers, the people, habits, or obligations that currently drain your energy. Now, pick one item from the leaker list. Decide on a structural boundary for that item. If it's a person, I will only talk to them for 10 minutes a week. If it's an app, I will delete this from my phone for 7 days. If it's a work obligation, I will stop checking my email after 6 p.m. Implement this boundary tomorrow. When the pushback comes, and it will, do not react. Do not apologize. Just stand behind the wall and breathe. Feel the protection of the armor. Repetitive coaching. You are not a public park. You are not a dumping ground for other people's problems. You are a fortress of neutrality. The walls you build today are the peace you will enjoy tomorrow. Stop letting them in. Stop giving it away. Guard the gate. When they demand your time, boundary. When they dump their drama, boundary. When they test your patience, armor. Boundaries are armor. Boundaries are power. Boundaries are survival. Boundaries are armor. Boundaries are power. Boundaries are survival. Boundaries are armor. Boundaries are power. Boundaries are survival. Chapter 10. Live above the chaos. The view from the peak. The world you live in is designed to be chaotic. It is a swirling vortex of conflicting opinions, market fluctuations, political upheavals, and personal dramas. Most people spend their entire lives at the bottom of this vortex, being tossed around by the currents, gasping for air, and reacting to every wave that hits them. They are in the chaos. But there is another way to exist. Imagine a great mountain that rises high above the clouds. At the base of the mountain, there is a thunderstorm. The wind is howling, the rain is torrential, and the lightning is striking the trees. But if you climb high enough, you reach a point where the air becomes still. You look down, and you can see the storm below you. You can see the lightning flashing and the clouds churning, but it cannot touch you. You are above the weather. Emotional neutrality is that mountain. It is the ability to look down at the weather of your life, the difficult boss, the family argument, the global crisis, and realize that while the storm is real, it is not you. You are the peak. You remain unshaken. Above the chaos. Above the noise. Above the storm. You remain unshaken. The historical blueprint. Marcus Aurelius. To understand how to live above the chaos, we must look at those who have done it in the most extreme circumstances. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome during the 2nd century. Aurelius was the most powerful man on earth, but his life was a constant storm. He faced the Great Plague that killed millions of his citizens. He faced constant wars on the borders of the empire. He faced the betrayal of his most trusted general and the loss of 8 of his children. If anyone had an excuse to be reactive, to be angry, or to be overwhelmed, it was him. Yet, he is remembered today not for his conquests, but for his stillness. Every night, in his tent on the front lines of a war, he wrote to himself. He reminded himself that the world is change, and that his only job was to maintain his internal fortress. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He lived above the chaos because he realized that the chaos was just the world doing what the world does. He didn't take the plague personally. He didn't take the betrayals personally. He remained neutral because he knew that his character was the only thing that belonged to him. By refusing to let the world dictate his internal state, he became the ultimate leader. Above the chaos, above the noise, above the storm, you remain unshaken. The modern titan, the psychology of the view from above. In modern psychology, there is a practice called the view from above. It involves mentally zooming out from your current situation. When you are in a problem, that problem looks massive. An argument with your spouse feels like the end of the world. A mistake at work feels like a career-ending catastrophe. This is because your camera lens is zoomed in too tight. To live above the chaos, you must zoom out. Imagine yourself from the ceiling of the room, then from the sky above your city, then from the edge of the atmosphere, looking down at the pale blue dot of Earth. From that height, your massive problem disappears. It becomes a tiny, insignificant stir in the vast timeline of human history. High-achieving business tycoons and political leaders use this perspective to stay neutral during market crashes or scandals. They don't look at the now, they look at the decade. They know that today's crisis will be a footnote in a year. When you live in the large timeline, the small noise of the present loses its power to upset you. Above the chaos, above the noise, above the storm, you remain unshaken. The trap of the human theatre. One of the greatest obstacles to living above the chaos is our natural desire to be part of the theatre. Humans are social animals. We are drawn to drama. We love to take sides, to be outraged, and to participate in the human theatre of conflict. Emotional neutrality requires you to become a member of the audience, not an actor in the play. When you see people arguing on the news, or your co-workers gossiping in the break room, recognize it as theatre. They are performing their roles. They are following their scripts of ego and reactivity. You don't have to jump on stage with them. You can sit in the back row, observe the performance, and remain completely unmoved. By refusing to play the role the world expects you to play, the role of the offended, the angry, or the anxious, you break the cycle. You are no longer a puppet of the script. You are the one who is watching the play, and that is where the power lies. Above the chaos, above the noise, above the storm, you remain unshaken. The resilience of Nelson Mandela. Consider Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in a small prison cell. He was subjected to forced labor, physical abuse, and the systematic attempt to break his spirit. The chaos of the apartheid system was designed to make him reactive, to make him hateful and bitter. But Mandela realized that if he hated his jailers, they had won. He realized that if he reacted with anger, he was still a prisoner of their system. He stayed neutral. He used his time in prison to study his enemies, to learn their language, and to master his own mind. When he finally walked out of prison, he didn't call for revenge. He called for reconciliation. He remained so far above the chaos of racial hatred that he was able to lead an entire nation into a new era. He didn't change South Africa by being the loudest or the angriest. He changed it by being the most unshakable. His neutrality was a gravitational force that pulled everyone else toward his level. Above the chaos, above the noise, above the storm, you remain unshaken. The discipline of the permanent state. Emotional neutrality is not a tool you pick up only when things go wrong. It is a permanent state. As we conclude this journey, you must realize that the 10 chapters of this book are not 10 separate rules. They are a single philosophy of existence. You observe because it is your nature. You stay silent because you know the value of words. You control your dialogue because you are the architect of your reality. You set boundaries because your peace is non-negotiable. Living above the chaos means that you no longer wait for the peace and quiet to feel good. You are the peace and quiet. Whether you are in a boardroom, a hospital waiting room, or a traffic jam, your internal state remains the same. You have become atmospheric. You don't react to the weather. You are the climate. The final synthesis, the neutral leader. The world is desperate for neutral leaders. We have enough reactors. We have enough shouters. We have enough people who are easily swayed by the latest trend or the latest insult. The person who can stay calm while others are panicking will always be given the keys to the kingdom. People will look to you. They will trust your judgment. They will feel safer in your presence. But you don't stay neutral for them. You stay neutral for you. You do it because you have realized that life is too short to spend it being a slave to your chemistry. You have realized that the ultimate luxury is a mind that is at peace with itself. The chaos will continue. The storms will keep coming. The world will keep trying to pull you down. But now, you have the armor. You have the weapon. You have the mountain. The final coaching. As this audiobook ends, don't return to your old habits. Don't go back to the low road. Every morning when you wake up, remind yourself, I am the observer. I am the silence. I am the mountain. Every evening before you sleep, audit your day. Did I pay the tax? Or did I keep my power? You are now equipped to navigate the world in a way that 99% of people never will. You are free. You are powerful. You are neutral. Repetitive reinforcement, the final mantra. Let these words be the last thing you hear, and the first thing you remember when the world tries to shake you. Let them echo in your mind until they become your very heartbeat. When the world screams, remain unshaken. When the ego demands, remain unshaken. When the storm rages, remain unshaken. You are above the chaos. You are above the noise. You are above the storm. You remain unshaken. Above the chaos. Above the noise. Above the storm. You remain unshaken. Above the chaos. Above the noise. Above the storm. You remain unshaken. Above the chaos. Above the noise. Above the storm. You remain unshaken. Above the chaos. Above the noise. Above the storm. You remain unshaken. End of audiobook.